Aaron, thank you so much for joining me on the Teachers Podcast today.
No problem, thank you for having me.
It's been a very long commute for you walking downstairs, but you actually did come from Hull today, didn't you?
Near enough Hull, yeah. It's a good 40 miles, but it's worth it to come to the podcast and tell my story.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm glad you're so positive about it. So just a bit of backstory then. So Aaron actually works with us at Classroom Secrets. You've recently been promoted as well. So congratulations on that one. And you're on the podcast today to talk to us about Teach First, and we do have a LifeWork Balance element to that. So we are going to be delving into what it means from a LifeWork Balance point of view to be doing Teach First. So hopefully I haven't given it away, but do you want to tell me everything? So why you wanted to be a teacher, how you got into it, you know, how you ended up here?
Yeah, where
your whole life story.
So initially at university, I studied law, so that was where I saw myself heading, sort of going.
I can see that.
And I think it instilled sort of a passion of hard working in me and that grafter in me. But it wasn't for me sat in an office 24/7, just sat on the phone, sat in front of a computer. I wanted something a bit different. So Teach First came along. It was advertised on social media, as most things are these days. That's where it was marketed to me. Looked further into it. Really liked the sound of it. It was an employment-based route into teaching, so I could get paid while I was learning on the job. And to me, it was a no-brainer compared to the other training routes out there. I felt I was strong enough physically and mentally to take on that challenge, rather than a skit or the traditional PGCE route. So with Teach First, it basically parachutes top performing graduates into schools, so you don't get to select your school as a trainee. They have a selection of schools which they place you in, and those schools are based on it's a portfolio of schools which is based on a formula of deprivation. So as a trainee teacher, you'll be placed in a school, let me get these facts right, with the pupils where over half of them are living within the 30% poorest families. So these are challenging schools from the outset. So that's why they look for the top performing graduates. And at the time, and I think it still is, Teach First was one of the most popular and top graduate employer. So it made sense for me to take that route. Yeah,
okay. So just a few questions then. So did you do any work experience when you were doing your law degree?
Yeah, I actually did a couple of weeks work experience at a local school, and I also was a TA for a short time. Now, for me, those two experiences really helped me inform my decision of my training route, because I think it gives you an idea and an expectation of what you're going to experience when you're training and thereafter. If, for instance, you're traditionally going down the PGCE route, you may have not had any work experience before you even set foot in a school. The last time you could have set foot in a school was when you was at school yourself.
Yeah, possibly. So, I think they do ask for some kind of experience.
Some child-related experience.
Yeah.
I think not necessarily in education, but
just on the university.
Yeah. And for me, those experiences were invaluable in just giving me an expectation of what I had to prepare myself for, because I went in with a mindset of knowing, yes, this is going to be tricky. I've seen it. I've seen what it can do to teachers if you're not prepared. And for some on the Teach First route, maybe they didn't have as much exposure or experience as I did and weren't as fully prepared, which is possibly why some do struggle more than others. But that could go across any training route. Yeah,
this is it. I mean, so when you actually went to university to do law, were you planning on what was your end goal?
I'd always based my studies, whether it was choosing options at GCSE, A levels, and then university, just what I enjoyed.
Yeah, me too.
And you know, you're not forced to
see where the opportunity would take you.
Yeah, you're not forced to say, this is what I want to do at 7 years old. I'm going to follow this path. If you know that, great, go for it. But you know, your professional career choices and your personal life choices all dictate and all pull at different points of your life to try and sort of guide you down a path.
And things change as well, don't they? Do you feel do you feel like the careers that you could have gone into from that all kind of had the same workload?
Doesn't everything nowadays? I mean,
well,
I was listening on the radio the other day. And
yeah, no.
Some are definitely more than others in terms of volume of workload and pressure. But I was listening the other day, and it was quite a poignant insight into technology and what it's done for businesses and just society as a whole. Is that it was designed to help us and speed us up. But if you're the only one with technology, you're the one with the advantage. So if you're working with technology, your company, your organisation has the advantage. But if everybody has technology, you're all working at the same pace, which is
So everyone's just working faster,
super
harder,
fast.
yeah.
So you're doing more work
Yeah.
at a faster rate. And because technology is embedded in so many businesses, workplaces and schools, it's very similar across all the board from my experiences of work. But yeah, you're right. It could have gone down the more commercial side of things, and there's sales targets, etc., client targets. But wherever I would be, I'd hope to be a high achiever, and I'd work for that anyway. So
yeah. So do you think with Teach First, obviously they take the top graduates, although I did hear yesterday that actually I think they've changed that now. I think they might have changed the entry criteria, but I'd have to check. But I think it might be 2-2 now. But do you think you went in with the mindset of I can do this? Obviously you could, but do you think it's different to sometimes people would go into teaching and a teacher who's currently teaching would not tell them not to, but maybe warn them, but it might not be what you think, whereas that person would be like, yes, but I'm really organised, so I can do it.
Yeah.
Do you think?
I think no matter how organised and up for a challenge you are, still nothing can prepare you for what to expect in a classroom full of 30 kids and all the unknown variables that can go on in that day. And throughout, when I was a teaching assistant and when I was on work experience, teachers were saying, you do know this is going to be hard, don't you? You do know this.
And it doesn't really slow down, does it?
No, it's,
you're
hit the ground running, first day, as soon as you parachute into that school, and then you're hitting the ground running forever on, because there's so much to learn. Schools are busy places, fast moving, and so much change happens so often that I think you're always playing catch up. Yeah. And that's where technology, again, it either helps us or hinders us.
Yeah, I guess so. So when you've talked about taking the next opportunity based on what you liked. When you went into teaching, did you think that you would be staying in it, or did you just know that it was for a time?
That's a good question.
Because I feel like I knew it was for a time. I went into it, but I didn't think I would be in it forever. Right,
and how come you just because of skills, or?
Because...
Sorry, I'm asking you the questions
no, it's
now.
fine. I'm like, I get a chance to talk. No, just because when I went in to do a PGCE, I did it because I didn't know what else to do, and I was like, the funding, the Performing Arts PGCEs, it happened that I actually liked it, but even then I just knew that it wouldn't be forever. I think I knew a lot about workload because my mum was a teacher, and I just thought, well, you can't do that forever.
Yeah, and I think from my perspective, it was, I enjoyed school when I was there as a kid, and I think sort of part of the romantic in me was thinking it's still going to be the same teaching, but it's a completely different side to it once you're in there. But yeah, I suppose it was the challenge aspect and that variety and the type of work you were doing. You're not always sat down behind a desk. You're up on your feet. You get a chance to integrate and interact with lots of different people throughout the day. But that comes with its own vices, and that is so exhausting at the same time to be able to do that and manage that.
I actually mentioned this on the podcast that I did a few days ago, but I read somewhere that one of the reasons why teachers go home so exhausted is because they've made so many decisions in one day, and it's actually the decision-making process that is really tiring. So it's not necessarily the physical side, because it's not that physical, is it? Yeah, you have to be up and down, but it's not like lugging heavy boxes around, but it's all the decisions you have to make in quick succession.
I think I must have read the same one, because it said you make more decisions in X amount of time than a brain surgeon does.
Yes.
So we should get paid.
Yeah,
the same as a brain
absolutely.
surgeon.
Yeah, well, obviously. Oh, well, that's good. Obviously innovative then, if you're reading that. Oh yeah. So did you think that you would be in it long term, or did you not really consider that?
I don't think I considered it either way. But if opportunities came along while I was there, then yeah, I'd see where it takes me. I'm quite a fluid individual in that sense.
Yeah,
I like to know what opportunities are there.
Open to something different.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Do you feel that because you did the Teach First, obviously it's quite an elite and renowned program, do you feel like it prepared you better?
That, for me personally, I couldn't see how much more I would have got from doing the traditional route rather than, as opposed to the crash course, the summer institute that Teach First provide over 6 weeks before you dropped into a school. So they do all they can over 6 weeks to develop your pedagogy, your national curriculum knowledge, your subject knowledge, and you're also introduced to your school in that time, so you can already build those links. And I'm not sure how it works in a traditional route, but that initial link, that initial contact with the school was priceless for me, because I got to meet my in-school mentor very early on, seeing how he taught for 2 weeks before I even, 2 months later until I was there. I got to build those relationships with the new head, the new principal, all the staff there, and I already knew that my mentor was not only going to be a professional mentor, but he was going to be quite a personal one as well. Because he turned out to be a very good friend of mine, and we had a lot of similar interests. And I think it's important to have those dialogues with people in your schools to find out what interests they have and how they can help you, not just professionally, but personally as well. And we had the same hobby, and it was great. And we just, we kept each other going, whether it was in the morning or late in the afternoon or a weekend. But I'm sure we'll come more onto the mentors and support that Teach First offer. Yeah,
okay. How did you feel about your life-work balance? So you kind of do, so you do a couple of weeks in school, I'm assuming, like it's just after you've finished your degree. Then you've got 6 weeks in the summer holidays when really you would need a break. Then you're straight into it. And you're teaching, 80% timetable?
You start on 60%, and I think you work your way up to 80%. So then it sort of mirrors the NQT year, and it prepares you for that. But as
so it's basically your first year of teaching, and then, a few weeks in, you're mirroring the NQT year. Like, what? How is it?
And you're unqualified.
And you're unqualified,
in your first year. But I mean, on top of that, the reason it's 60% is, yes, you're inexperienced, but also you've got your essays in there as well. So those essays would be very nicely timed over your half-term holidays. So you'd be flat out running September, and then sort of your first late October half term comes round. I've got an essay to do. I haven't got time to breathe. So, you're playing sort of the game of, do I need to do a bit of work beforehand while I'm still teaching to have a half term, or do I just leave it all to the half term and not have a half term?
And what did you do?
You're always balancing and spinning the plates to try and balance your work life. Your life-work balance, I want to call it now. So I took the wrong way, probably first, in that I would try and do too much early on while I was teaching. So I would try and chip away, little by little, a couple of days a week, while I was still teaching. And then I thought I might still get some half-term. I got a little bit of half-term, but the teaching part, the teaching element, suffered because I was sort of burning the candle at both ends, trying to get the essays done. So it came round to the first book inspection, and it's already, you think, oh no, I've met the policies and everything the first time, and it turns out 2, 3, 4 pieces of work maybe in one book, could be more in others, I'm not sure. But I was pulled up on that, and the principal was very well aware of why, very understanding why, and I think it took that process to ultimately come out at the end of it with a plan of how we can best approach you getting through these essays as well as teaching, which is intense.
I mean, it's just, can you imagine like doing that? I just can't imagine doing that.
It feels like a dream, to be honest.
Yeah.
Maybe a nightmare, but it feels like it wasn't me at the moment.
Yeah.
Because it was...
Because you have no time to recuperate, really.
Or reflect on it. Yeah, you get them done, you send it off, and you don't really... I don't want to say care about it, but you don't want to think about it anymore. You don't have time or the space in your brain to think about, well, I wrote that, this, and it's impacted my teaching in this, and this way.
Yeah.
There's just not the time
to reflect.
To reflect.
Yeah, and I feel like I understand that more now, because in my job now, I need to be really reflective, but I don't have time to think often, and sometimes you just need to like go for a walk or something and not have just constant... And it's that technology thing, isn't it? The information is just constantly at you all the time.
I remember someone, I think it was my mentor, the one I've got a good bond with, and he said, there's always more things to do than there is time to do them.
Yeah.
So you're always going to be playing catch up. So you have to, not necessarily, if you think you're drowning in workload and you haven't got much of a life-work balance, it's not about just dropping the work, because that's going to cause you more problems. It might think in the short term, if I don't do that, then I'm going to have this time here.
Yeah.
But it's going to cause you problems and probably more work down the line.
Yeah.
It's not about working harder to get it done, it's about working smarter and coming up with strategies for you and tools you can use
to get it done faster,
to get it done more efficiently.
Yeah.
Still good quality, or what's needed to get the job done. And I think coming from a law background, I was very much a bit of a perfectionist.
Yeah.
I wanted to have things perfect and
Yeah.
and on the line, ready to go, but you can't be like that, and you quickly learn that.
Don't you think it's hard though to know, so good is good enough, but what is good enough?
I think that's a learning process as well with each school.
And it's different, different in every school, and you think, oh, is this good enough? And then an SLT will go, no, it's not. Well, why is it not? Because you haven't used 5 pens.
Yeah.
And that's stupid.
Or my planning wasn't aligned and sent off at the same time, and in a bank ready to be checked. That was one thing that really frustrated me.
Right.
That I had to have my planning done by a particular time on a Sunday in this folder that could be checked.
Right, right.
And I'm sure there'll be a lot of people out there thinking, what on earth is that rule?
Yeah, yeah.
But it was something
but there are
that
still
was
schools
normal.
That
it was seen as natural.
That, yeah.
And I think because it had to be there on a Sunday ready to be checked for the following week, I spent Sunday, it was treated as a work from home day.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you're working 7 days a week pretty much anyway, but Sunday was I'm sorry, I can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
I'm working from home, I've got to get this done and put in the folder.
And I think what is quite alarming about that, when you're talking about that now, and I think back, I used to dread, like we had family parties often at that time of year, in that time when I was teaching, because the children across the family were young, so you'd have to go to their family parties, and I think, please don't be a family party on a Sunday. When am I going to get my work done?
Yeah, and I think as you grow as a person and time moves on, your work and your personal life, they're all going to be pulling at you at different times and in varying strengths. And for the strategies that you have in place, you have to be flexible in terms of your life-work balance, because if you're not, those strings are going to pull you apart. Yeah,
you're not going to get anything. Talk me through then what a typical week looked like for you.
As in at what stage?
So did it improve then? So you were there for your unqualified year, then you did an NQT year, so they're the 2 years you would teach first, and then the 3rd year you were an RQT, so you weren't with Teach First anymore, but you were still teaching.
That's right.
So did it improve?
My life-work balance did improve.
Were you in the same year group?
I was in mixed year 3-4 to begin with, in the first 2 years, and then it was just a solid single form year 3.
Right.
But I think my issue was, at the schools I worked with, they were all single form entry, so I'd never had anybody to share planning with.
Yeah.
And I seem to have joined at the points where there was redeveloping the curriculum.
Yes, so did I.
So it's a case of
where they delete everything off the server so you're not allowed to use it.
I never saw what was there before. So
no, I didn't. But that's what I heard. They were like, oh yeah, they've deleted everything.
And it's very much, we want you to go down this route. This is what we want you to plan out.
Yeah.
And you've got to reteach yourself all these things before you can even plan them and deliver them yourself. So that's another bit of time. So again, there's more things to do than there is time to do it.
Yeah.
And it's about working smarter. So I'm sure we'll come on to strategies, but you've got to be flexible in your strategies as well. There's
So
no routine,
what
I'm afraid, for
strategies
me.
did you use?
Strategies for me was, the very first thing was when I joined as an unqualified teacher, was having that expectation that this is going to be hard. Going in with the mentality that it's not going to be easy. If I treat it as it's going to be easy, I can just work until 3 o'clock, clock off, and then go wherever. That wasn't going to happen. I would be severely disappointed. I expected to work until 5, half 5.
Right.
Turn up at 8, probably in the morning, to set the books out, because that's what I saw, that's what I knew when I was a teaching assistant and on work experience. But you don't see the bit where they go home at 5, half 5, have tea, 2 hours more work, marking or planning.
Yes, you don't see
That's not the bit you see. So one of the other main strategies I had was setting myself a cut-off. I know it sounds very simple, but with just setting a cut-off is having self-discipline to say, that's my cut-off. I'm sorry, I've worked till 8. I've done X amount of hours today. I've done X amount of hours this week and last week. If it's not going to get done, it's probably not worth doing, because it's not been on top of my priority list.
Yeah, I think what's important to say about that as well, because had you said that to me as a teacher, I would have been like, well, that's not possible. I need to do X, Y, and Z. But now I feel like I've done a lot more reading around, and I've learned a lot more about myself and managing my very different workload now. And I think it's not just about saying, oh, I cut off at this time. It's about knowing what has to be done by that point. So I get up at 5 and I have till half 6 to work. So I try and think the day before, like, what must I have done in that time? But if I left it and came into the office where people are talking to me and things, it might take me 3 hours to do something that could take half an hour. So I think if you give yourself a specific time that it has to be done by, you will work to that. We work within the time we have to do it, if you see what I mean. If you said, oh, your deadline is 2 weeks, it'll take 2 weeks. But if your deadline is 2 days, it'll take 2 days.
And the thing is, with schools, they work so fast, they want things very quickly.
They do, yeah.
And it was often emails on Sunday afternoon, work from home day, that you get things, oh, I need this by Monday, I need this by Tuesday.
Yeah.
So that's why Sunday was a dedicated work from home day, to get those things done, because there wasn't the time in the day working until 8 p.m. at night on a weekday to get it done.
I often think as well, because I know that there's a lot of talk on social media, really, like, should SLT shouldn't send emails out of work time. I personally don't agree with that, because I think you have to do what's right for you. So there might be, I don't know, there might not be SLT, but there might be a teacher out there, maybe they're an NQT, maybe they've got a young child and they're up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and if something, they need to get that off their mind, then they should be allowed to send that email. But there should be a rule that there's no notifications on, and that there's no expectation to answer until, you're in working time.
Yeah.
But the point is that often there is an expectation for you to answer, and the reason why they're sending those emails on a Sunday saying they need it for Tuesday is because they're so overworked that they haven't thought of it until the last minute, and then they pass it on to you.
Yeah, it's such
it's just
a
this cycle.
self-fulfilling prophecy of negativity and rushed work of high workloads. I think it's a broken system at the moment, but when you look at some of the statistics out there, they're frightening.
Yeah.
You couple with 2/3, I just read the other day, 2/3 of teachers feel constantly or often overworked. A third of those surveyed said that they work over 51 hours all the time every week. That's a lot of hours.
It's a lot of hours, but I actually think
you marry those, as a minimum 51 hours, and you marry those statistics up with those that are leaving their profession. It's quite frankly criminal.
Yeah.
The amount of people that are leaving because of workload.
So did you find yourself doing work every weekday night?
Most weekdays I would be working either at school until late. I got kicked out by the caretaker at 6:30, so I tried to make sure as much could be done as possible, book-wise, before 6:30, because that meant I had some sort of divide between my school life of the books and my home life. And if I did have to take books home, I'd have a separate place to do my planning, to do my marking, which was away from my private life. So definitely didn't have them in the bedroom.
Yeah.
Definitely have them in the kitchen or living room.
Yeah.
It was a separate place because that was my space. That was where I could relax.
Yeah,
And I felt if school life encroached on that, then I'd have nowhere to go.
Yeah. No, I get that. I wish I had an office at home. Yeah, it's so difficult though, how you kind of get through. It's so tricky. Right, okay. So what support did you have in place then? So when you were an unqualified teacher and then when you were an NQT?
So Teach First sort of operate on a three-pronged approach to developing you and supporting you throughout those 2 years. You're assigned an LDO, which back in my day when I did the programme was a leadership development officer.
Okay.
I think they're now known as participant development leads, but they are essentially your point of contact, your go-to person at Teach First who they've built the connection with the school, and if you're too afraid to ask for something at school or there's an issue which you're not confident enough to bring up and air with the school, you go to them and they'll be the middle person.
So if they're a leadership development officer, is the idea that when you go in on a Teach First programme that you'll be fast-tracked?
Into an LDO?
Into a leadership role in school?
Oh yes, so the skills you learn as part of the Teach First programme is you learn a lot of leadership skills as well. So the aim is, as you progress, you're equipped with the skills to move into middle management and then senior leadership. That's the hope anyway. But that LDO initially, when you enter schools, is your safety net, if you like.
Right.
They're going to catch you if you fall, and they're the bridge between you and the school, especially as in your first year.
Did you have any support so obviously you've said that you found your own strategies for coping. Did you get taught any strategies for coping?
So another way they supported you was they'd have contact days, which were on a weekend, on a Saturday. So that was my day off, which now I was on a contact day, or a conference day, where the whole cohort came together and they would deliver subject knowledge courses or sessions on pedagogy or sessions on LifeWork Balance.
Which is really good.
So it was either a session which you could participate in as a form of LifeWork Balance, to do something different, or to get you interested in the hobby, salsa dancing. I did try it, quite enjoyed it.
Good.
Or they'd have a session where they would sort of try and teach you a strategy or give you a tool you can use and then make it your own and then apply it to your own life to try and help you develop a LifeWork Balance. So your LDO was your first one. Your second one was your mentor in school. So your LDO and your mentor, they would come together termly quite often, discuss your progress, set you smart targets, which I found very effective. And you could, again, that was a meeting between the three of you, and it was a very open dialogue, and you could voice any concerns there, and their experience was invaluable in terms of trying to guide you down the right path and sort issues out for you. And the third one was the tutors at university. So to get your PGCE, you'd also spend time with tutors doing your essays. So there's that experience and that support there as well. But in my experience, most participants would lean on the mentor or the LDO. Okay.
I'm pleased to hear that they did consider that LifeWork Balance was important to learn about, because I'm not really sure, as I certainly didn't learn anything like that on my PGCE.
I think now they've introduced an online wellbeing course, which wasn't around when I was there. As to its effectiveness, I'm not sure, but anything out there that can help you, guide you to something to gain a bit of LifeWork Balance must be good. But again, you've got to spend time to watch it, to invest in it, and then to get something out of it. I think the message I would give is, in order to get time back, you've got to invest time. So that's either spending time writing down a plan of when you're going to mark books and when you're going to have time off, or is it a time of, this is my hobby, this is when I'm going to do it, this is when I'm going to stop working, and I will be there at that hobby.
You do have to plan, and you have to give over that time. Definitely you do. Okay. Do you feel that the support ran through into your RQT, or were you kind of dropped then?
So sort of on the unqualified year, you had those three faces helping you all the way. And your second year, as I say, I didn't really lean too much on my university lecturer or my LDO at that point, because my mentor was so good and effective, I thought anyway, in helping me. It might not have been the same for somebody else, but for someone in my shoes, with helping me come up with strategies in the way I worked, they helped me.
Yeah.
So they were there as options, but I didn't really use them. And then they almost, I'd like to say disappear, but that's not true in your RQT year, because you're then known as an ambassador of Teach First after the 2 years. So you're officially not tied to an LDO or a PDL as they are now, but they're still there, so you can still contact them, and I'm sure they would still come in and help deliver training or help support you in any way they can. But I think one of the biggest support networks is the masses and masses of other participants that have gone through the process. And there's loads of social media groups, and some groups do meet occasionally at the local pub and things, and they talk about their experiences, and that's healthy. Talking about their experiences, sharing ideas,
to get it out there.
Just getting it out there to ears you can trust, who it's not going to go back to and say, so and so said this, I think you need to have a word. Some people don't feel honest and open to have and confident enough to have a dialogue in school with those in SLT positions, because they fear it's going to come back and bite them in some way. And I think when I was in RQT and I was trying to develop new areas of learning and parts of the curriculum, and you think, I've got so much on, I'm a bit fearful of saying no. And how do you say no to a head teacher that's putting trust in you to do these things? And they want them done,
and I guess in
you
that
want to challenge yourself as well. You've come from Teach First, and it's kind of like, but we're doing this it's all for you. We're doing you a favour here. We are doing you a favour to develop you here. And you kind of think, oh well, how can I say no to this? Well, it's very difficult. Okay, so I'm just looking at all the questions that you've already answered. Okay, so NQTs, they tend to fall into a trap, don't they, of putting 110% in and then burning out quickly. So from your personal experience, what advice or tips would you give to other teachers who are thinking about maybe applying for Teach First? I think the biggest one, not if you're just applying for Teach First, but any teacher route, is get experience, go out there and see what being a teacher is all about. Ask them questions. Don't just turn up at 9 o'clock and then go home at 3:30. Turn up early, go home late when the teacher goes home late. See if you can sit in on meetings. Ask them what they do at home. Ask them how many hours they work. Get as much information and as good of a feel as possible as you can for the profession. Because if you want to commit yourself to that profession, that's what you'll be experiencing. And be under no illusion that it'll be far different to what they're experiencing there. And that information gathering is a good way of preparing you for a mindset of, yes, it's going to be hard. I'm aware it's going to involve X, Y, and Z, but I've already got X, Y, and Z in place to deal with those. So you can already start coming up with some strategies to help you based on what you've seen and based on your experiences. So work experience to build a mindset, I would say, is crucial, but also invest in, I can't specify enough how investing time to make time is
to come up with
so
plans
important.
and things. I think it is important to really understand what you're going into. And as much as I don't advocate, all these teachers leaving the profession, they're doing it for a reason. And I also think it's okay to say, I've had people ask me before if they should go into teaching, and I never tell them no, but I do tell them my experience, and I say to them, if you want to do it, try it, but don't beat yourself up if it's not your long-term thing. It's okay if you only do it for 5 years and then that moves you on to something else, that's okay. And obviously we do want teachers to stay in the profession, but also the job that is now can't really be done by many people long term. So you kind of have to have a way somewhere.
And that's not just an opinion, that's not just somebody saying something, that's someone who's worked in the profession from their experience, but it's backed up by so many statistics. There is something inherently wrong with the system, and change needs to happen. I mean, we've discussed with amongst other teachers that can there not be set hours in contracts? But you know, the worry is so much of teaching is based on goodwill.
Nothing will get done.
Nothing would get done.
No assessment.
But then if you base it on 37, 38 hours a week, you can really see what can be done in that time frame, and how much won't be done. And that is your measure of, well, this is what people are doing on the side in their own time.
And I think, you know, I've been to other countries and talked to teachers. So I was in Serbia last year, and one of the extended family members as a teacher, and just talking to her, trying to understand how on earth they managed to not work at home. She was really surprised when I told her about it. But I felt like the questions I were asking her, she couldn't give me the kind of answers that I was expecting to get, because she was so confused why I was asking. She couldn't put together why on earth that I would need to know all these questions, because she just doesn't do it. And I said, well, do you ever work at home? She said, oh yes. And I said, oh right. And I'm thinking, this is normal. And she's like, yes, once a term I bring the papers home to grade, and I do it on a Friday night.
So what's their secret? What can we?
Okay then. And I was like, well, what hours do you work? And literally she works like 7:30 in the morning, because they only do like half day school, to 1:30 in the afternoon, or she would do 1:30 in the afternoon to 7 at night. And it's like on a rota. I know, even
it's stunned through
like,
shock.
How
that
on
sounds
earth is that happening?
Yeah.
I'm not really sure how either, because I didn't really kind of get answers to my questions, because she was so confused why I was asking her.
Unless the school is so strict,
the English barrier.
They've told the staff to, yes, it's a very good place to work. You must tell everybody this is how we do it.
Yeah, but I just mind-boggling. So you did 3 years. Why did you decide to leave?
I think ultimately the life-work balance thing, it just became too much of a burden for me to try and fit anything I wanted to do in.
You just become so tired, don't you?
I think that's it. And you eventually become exhausted, and an exhausted teacher is an ineffective teacher. And I didn't want to be the one responsible for providing not a poor education, but one I knew I could provide a very good education, and I didn't want to do them a disservice by going in, giving half effort, but that's all I could give.
You want to do a good job, don't you? Everyone wants to do a good job, but sometimes you just can't. You've just not got any energy left.
But I think that's when people start sort of kicking themselves, and you sort of get this voice in your head saying, why aren't you giving 110%? And you know you're exhausted mentally, but you can't give any more, but you've still got people saying, can you take this, can you take this? Often you can't see it yourself, that you are burning out, that you are tired, and that you're not being you. It takes someone else, someone you know, maybe a friend or a family member, to say, are you okay? You know, have you got
to notice?
Because you sort of settle into that routine of working all the time, and it becomes normal to you. Whereas someone else, they're thinking, well, that's a bit odd. He's not turned up to this for work. He's not done this because of work.
It's kind of like, well, why are you working again? Like you should have done something to make that not happen, like that was possible.
And you almost feel like, because I haven't managed to do anything to do for my own benefit of work-life balance, and I haven't come up with a strategy to find that time, you feel like, well, I'm a bit of a failure for not being able to do that.
And I think you look at yourself as well, and you think, well, other people are doing it. You know, I've actually had family members say to me, well, so-and-so can do it. And different setting, different year groups, different, whole different, I don't know the word, secondary, not primary, that kind of thing.
There's so many variables that can determine your work-life balance, and it's not just being a teacher or in this school and that school. It's your personal life,
how good you are, or
your knowledge of the subject. so many, like the people you work with,
Yeah.
what they demand, your policies. There's so many variables, and it's very tricky and difficult to compare one teacher
with another one
to another.
Yeah, especially if you're in a school that, you know, is in a bit of trouble, then you've got to document everything, and the head teacher's not going to be saying, oh, it's all right, you don't have to mark every day. You know, they're not going to be saying that kind of thing, are they? So out of other teachers in your cohort, is there anyone who's still in teaching? You know, how are they getting on?
The ones I'm still in touch with, they are still teaching, but they're not teaching at their original school they trained at. So because you get picked up and placed in a school away from home, they've probably moved back to a school closer to their familial and friend.
Right, so you have to live away from home as well?
Yeah, so that's another thing I probably haven't mentioned, is that I actually did my training out in Skegness. Really enjoyed it when I was there, but you know, before the move you're thinking, well, it's a long way from home and a long way from friends and family. I've instantly got no support network around me. The only people you can bond with are those going through the same process as trainees as you, which I lived with.
Right.
And very supportive.
So I
but
guess
also
that
your
is
school
helpful
mentor.
In a way, I can see why they do that, because I did my PGCE away, and that was a good thing, because everyone was doing the same thing, so no one had time to socialise with each other anyway, and we all just sat in our rooms every night and worked. So they do that for a reason, to make you successful. Now I'm seeing it.
But I did actually, I know of a person who was struggling quite significantly in their first year with work-life balance and just the volume of work. Whether or not they had the right expectation of what to experience in the role of a teacher, I don't know. But what I can say is Teach First, the LDO was very good at creating that dialogue with that person, putting a support plan in place and extending their time in school and sort of helping them come up with strategies and adapting and changing their role to help it work for them. So in that sense, Teach First are very supportive, and as I say, they're that safety net, that person that'll catch you when you fall, whereas no one else might do in the school. Everyone's too busy, but that's that person there for you, and they do back you all the way.
So what would you say now to, it could be anybody really, but I suppose specifically if somebody's on Teach First, maybe they're in their unqualified year or they're in their NQT year, who is struggling with a life-work balance, what would you say to them?
I think the first thing I would say is have the confidence to tell somebody that you're struggling with work-life balance, whether that's a friend first, someone you trust, or a family member. But then ultimately you have to maybe tell your LDO if you're on Teach First, your PDL, but someone in school has to know for something to be done about it. If they're not to know, they're just going to think, no, they're getting on fine, they've got a bit of work to do, but they're managing, they're not voiced a concern. And I think making that statement of flying the white flag once just shows that I've said yes to too much, or I've got too much on. I just need to delegate this, or give me an extension on this, or show me how to do this in a way that I might not have thought about, but it's going to help me in terms of my time.
I think it's important that you said that, and when I was in teaching, I would have never kind of said this, but obviously now leading the company, I feel like I can see it from a leadership point of view. I think it's important as well, yes, say something, but don't expect that will just be taken off your plate. You might actually be shown a different way to do something, or accept the help of, it might be do this in a different way, and not, or we'll just take it off you, you don't have to worry about it anymore, because the end goal is that is still part of the role. And so you're going to have to find a way to be able to do everything. And I think also coming from sort of a university background, and you've achieved well, you don't want to admit that you can't do something. That's true.
So from my point of view, it was quite hard to say, can you just help me with this? Show me a way that you know that I don't to help me. Because just making that admittance of honesty, it was quite a big step, and I assume can be quite a big step for some people as well.
But things can be so much faster when you know how, when you're not having to learn it in the first place. So.
And I think by the end you are grateful that you've made that honesty and you've made that statement, and then they can help you and show you rather than struggle on.
I think that is a really good tip, because that's not something that we do. I don't remember being in school and asking for help, like, how do you do this? I'd figure it out. It'd take me hours sometimes. Why didn't I ask? That was stupid.
But we live and learn, don't we?
Yes, just learning slightly too late.
Yeah, I think that's the whole process, is that you're always learning as a teacher. And I think once you accept that you don't know everything, you never will know everything or be the best at everything in teaching. I think you come to accept that this is how I do things. It works for me.
Yeah.
I'm getting the results. I'm going to carry on this way, and then I'm going to develop and grow through CPD as and when needed.
I think it's just developing that culture as well, isn't it? Like, it's okay to say, from both points of view, it's okay to say, actually, can you just show me a quicker way? But then also the other teachers in school, or whoever's, in a position of authority, needs to be willing to hear that and act as well. Because I think it works on both sides, really.
There's that investment of time again as well, in that you need to take the time to think about what you're struggling with, take the time to ask somebody or tell somebody, and then have the time for somebody to show you how to do something. Don't just drop the task altogether. Invest time in trying to figure out how to do it, and that investment in time will hopefully pay dividends
and make it better in the end. Okay, thank you. Right, I've got 4 closing questions then. So, if you could wave a magic wand, how would you solve the LifeWork Balance problem?
That's a very, very good question. Could I wave my magic wand and give every teacher a magic wand to say, now we've all got wands, and I don't know where I'm going with this.
I knew you'd have a creative idea.
Now we've all got wands, and we can just educate children with our wands and through magic, because I think that is at the moment our only solution is through magic.
That's true. It would be really good actually if you could have a magic wand to mark the books. We didn't even have to think about what it was. The magic wand would read all the work, would know all the areas for development, know what was good, and just wrote a paragraph for you. That'd be amazing. Especially if you could read it out to the child as they open the book, and only they could hear it inside their head.
And then the teacher can just sit there on the desk drinking a coffee for the first time in months.
Oh my word. I feel like we could go on, but we best not. I think that's
I know it's not strictly an answer probably you was looking for, but I think
it's one of the best
answers
I've had.
There's so much change that's needed, and that's the only way I can conceptualise the amount of change that's needed is through a magic wand.
No, that's good. I think that was probably the best answer ever. But the one before that was the time turner, Harry Potter's time turner. It's Hermione's actually, isn't it? But anyway.
Rather than the cloak of invisibility to just hide in a cupboard.
Yeah, that is a good idea. Well, if you're listening and you're going to be a guest, there's your answer. Okay, right. Next question. Where do you think education is going in the next 10 years?
Another good question. You saved the hard ones until the end.
I have.
I think technology is just a huge area at the moment, and whether it's AR, VR, whichever way you want to call it or look at it, technology is playing a big role at the moment in educating kids and sort of educating in the way that's not been thought about before. So I think a lot of businesses are now investing, and schools are investing in technology packages to try and get the best out of the curriculum they have, the best out of the work schemes they have, to try and make learning and education not just about the data, but also about engagement, especially with Ofsted's new deep dive procedure, in that there's going to be such a bigger focus on all the other subjects apart from your core, maths, English and reading. All those other subjects have to be the same or better standard than those. And I think enriching the whole curriculum through technology is one way of doing it. And it's finding the right provider, the right method of technology to do that. Whether it's out there now, 5 years, 10 years, I don't know. But I think that's the way it's going, and whether or not kids will then be taught through technology less dependent on a teacher? I don't know, but
I also think it'll be a range
factor.
of providers, and to get a balance, perhaps.
Maybe there's a way of getting the child into the prehistoric era, and they can walk around. I mean,
Would you just love that for yourself, though? I would love
just
that.
to transport myself away from the classroom.
Yes. But that would be amazing, though. Yeah, really amazing. One thing
It's
I think
making it cost effective so schools can buy in.
But Google already do something where they come in for free, don't they? And they take you to the Colosseum or something.
Oh, I'm not sure
Yeah, I'm sure they do some kind of thing like that, and you get them into your school, and they do it for the day or something.
But I think that'll become more commonplace,
Yeah.
and a more staple part of every curriculum and every work scheme, because schools will have their own access to technology of that standard.
Yeah, it does make a difference if you feel like you've been there. I remember when I was a child, my mum and dad, when we went on holiday, we always went to a castle or something, and you don't really think that means anything to you, but as a teacher, when I'd look back, I had something to write about. I had experiences to write about, and especially when you're doing it from a historical point of view, you might not realise the details that you're putting in because of what you experienced, but you are. And so I think that'll be really beneficial, especially for children who don't go on trips with the parents and things, because they will have that experience in a way. Yeah.
And especially for those schools that teach first, who over half their kids in the poorest 30% of families, they're not going to get those opportunities with those families, or they're going to be few and far between.
Yeah,
and
it's more difficult for them, isn't it?
It certainly opens up the opportunity for them, and it broadens their horizons in so many different areas to enhance their learning.
Okay, so who was your favourite teacher and why?
I really enjoyed not necessarily being taught by... Am I allowed to say names?
Yeah.
Because these people are still out there and may watch.
And they will be really happy, because I haven't said who's your worst teacher.
Okay, right. Fair enough. So, yeah, I think when I was at secondary school, we had... And I was in year 7, just...
I hope you're going to share it with them now.
Very small and, very naive as a year 7. And our head teacher was Mr. Berman, and he was a former rugby player, and he had big broad shoulders, very stocky, and he spoke with a very deep and bellowing voice, and he had a real presence in the room. So he was the head teacher, and if you were being taught English and he walked in, Stanley over there is sat like this and Sarah's half asleep. As soon as he walked in, it was everybody, statues facing the front, and I wasn't a naughty kid at school, but I just enjoyed seeing the way in which people around me responded to different authorities and different figures. Some teachers would try and make friends and be a bit more jokey with them to try and get their respect and bond with them on that level. But I just really, really liked seeing when Mr. Berman walked into a room and everybody commanded his attention.
It's really funny you should say that, because I would say... I don't know if I'd say he was my favourite teacher, but one of the most memorable teachers was a science teacher for me. Nobody messed around in his lesson, and I didn't like science, and I was scared of him, but I knew where I stood, because I was good, and I knew what was going to happen. I knew that if there was, there'd be no messing around in his class, basically. And so, I'm kind of the same. I liked the fact that he could command the room, and it just felt right.
I knew the boundaries, and I knew what the consequences were going to be. Whether or not I'd learnt anything is up in the air. I'm not going to say whether I did or I didn't. But as far as the most memorable teacher, it'd have to be him.
Yeah, okay. And what did you want to be when you grew up?
A footballer. What do most of the young men want to be?
What does every young boy want to be?
They aspire to be David Beckham, don't they? I even had the haircuts. I had the Mohican. I had the curtains going on. I had the bowl haircut, and my hair used to be so bright blonde. I know we're going off tangent now.
Go on.
It used to be so bright blonde. It was very much like David Beckham's at the time. But I went to a petting zoo with my family, and I was just stood next to a fence, and the goat started gnawing on my hair.
I've had that
because
as
it
well.
thought it was straw, so it could eat it. But yeah, I emulated David Beckham, and I wanted to be a footballer. So,
at what point did you realise that wasn't going to happen?
The first time I kicked a football.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. It's been a lot more amusing than I thought it would be. So thank you.
No, thanks for having me on. It's been very useful and insightful. Thank you.
Good, thank you.